So yeah, they're basically just 4x4 pens. They have a hopper feeder in there, water line running through them. And I think if we're growing a big bird, we do maybe 14 birds at placement. So not quite as the same density placement as what we would have in the house, but there's obviously kind of crammed in there 4x4 relative to a 500-foot house.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Poultry Nutrition Blackbelt Podcast, where we bring you the latest in poultry nutrition research and industry trends in approximately 10 minutes. My name is 𝗟𝗶𝘀𝗁𝘀. I'm a co-host of the show and associate professor of poultry nutrition at Auburn University. Today, I'm joined by a guest from the industry and who I've known for several years, starting through grad school, Dr. 𝗟𝗶𝘀𝗁𝘀 Williams, a nutritionist at Wayne-Sanderson. So excited to kind of hear a little bit of an integrator nutritionist perspective on research and decision making. So I'm really actually pretty excited about this today. So 𝗟𝗀, thanks for your time today and good to visit with you.
Hey, appreciate it. Do I have to call you Dr. Rochel? Can I call you Sam?
No, let's go with Sam. With Sam. So
I mispronounced your last name wrong for like 5 years before.
That's all right. It's common. It's common. So, you kind of have first off, I'd like to give the audience a little bit about your background. You kind of have a somewhat of a non-traditional pathway into poultry science, at least. So you can tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to your current position at Wayne-Sanderson.
Sure. So actually grew up in Western New Mexico, very small town, not a lot of, I think the census data showed there was like 200 for the population. Graduating class was like 15, so small town. My family, both sides were cattle, so cow-calf operations. Then, so I went to Texas Tech, met a girl through livestock judging, moved to Arkansas, actually did a master's in beef reproductive physiology, and then got smart, I guess, or someone had a better idea than I did to try out poultry nutrition there at Arkansas. So worked with Susan Watkins and learned a lot of stuff real fast, because before I'd seen, maybe 20 chickens in my entire life. So the first broiler house I went in was like, 100 times more that I'd ever seen before. So that was pretty interesting, getting a lot of experience and new eyes on it. And then right out of school, I actually went and worked at 𝗟𝗪son Farms in South Mississippi. And I was there for about 2 years, and then got the opportunity to come to Wayne. And then in 2022, Wayne and Sanderson merged. So basically I've been working for one company the entire time, just a little bit odd, but so that's how I ended up here.
Ready for more sustainable poultry production? New data suggests that decreasing bacterial loads in feed using termin 8 supports enteric health, leading to improved performance. Gut health is more than a gut instinct. Learn more today at www.𝗏𝗏𝑇ox.com.
Very cool. Yeah. So you started on the beef cattle side and then ultimately transitioned into poultry. And you've kind of always, been on the practical and production side of it. I know even through your master's, you spent a lot of time at the Savoy Research Unit, which was, a lot of, at Arkansas, there's actually a working broiler farm that is integrated within the department. I know you spent a lot of time and did some research out there, and then went straight into production. So I know you have a lot of practical background.
Savoy, yeah, I lived out there. We actually had mini pens out there, so that's where I did all my research for my PhD, which is kind of neat because now we have two different farms set up as mini pens, very similar way that we had it out there. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, and that's a good transition to kind of what we had planned to talk about today, is just like a production nutritionist perspective on research. And so, I know you're someone who's pretty involved in conducting research at different levels. And so just wanted to kind of talk about how that feeds into the decisions that you're making. And so, we've actually done some research projects here. So, you do work with universities through a collaborative arrangements, and then you have a lot of internal research as well. So just to kind of frame the question of how that ultimately helps you make decisions, let's just talk about that. Like from your perspective, if you have a question you need answered, I mean, kind of what is the ideal approach as far as gathering information to ultimately implement a decision?
Yeah, so I think it's going to kind of depend on what the question is. So if we're looking at, product tests, if it's just a single product, we probably, if we can get the feed made, mini pens, we're pretty comfortable with those. I think we can replicate in one house like 24 per treatment, so we can get a lot of reps in there, and they do a really good job managing that farm.
Just to clarify, for the audience, so when you say mini pens, can you talk a little bit about just the general setup of your mini pen system that you use? Kind of unique.
So they're right down the middle, broiler house. So they I think one house that we test has 48 pins, and the other test farm has 24 pins. So we can get plenty of reps. Usually not a lot of treatments, just the challenge with getting different feed made. We try to come to you guys there at Auburn if we have a test we need to get done in small batches. They're basically just 4x4 pins. They have a hopper feeder in there, water line running through them. And I think if we're growing a big bird, we do maybe 14 birds at placement. So not quite as the same density placement as what we would have in the house, but there's obviously kind of crammed in there 4x4 relative to a 500-foot house. So, and basically just kind of feed and weigh. We sometimes will be able to get some yield data. We can go through 𝗟𝗶𝘀𝗁 if we're doing any specifics with them on collaborations. If they can, they'll do some yield for us. The other option is to really get with one of our plants there in like North Alabama, and they'll usually do maybe 25, 50 birds per treatment, so we can kind of have an idea if there's any kind of yield differences. Yeah, so that's kind of that in a nutshell. But again, getting feed made is kind of the hard thing there. So we do quite a few vaccine trials. Dr. Burleson and the vets, they'll do quite a bit of those. We'll look at some breed trial comparisons. So pretty practical kind of stuff. If we're doing something more theoretical, or we have a really cool idea, we just really want to make sure it's very precise, then I think something like working with you or different universities is kind of where we tend to go for that. Or if we're testing enzymes and we have a whole bunch of them we want to test, we're going to go find somebody feed and weigh kind of trial.
Now, I think the mini pen is really neat because, I mean, it's similar setup to like what we have in a research barn facility, except the difference is outside of those pens where we have just concrete and then that's it. These pens are actually within a very similar production environment, or within the same production environment as, the birds in that house and farm and complex. So, it's always been interesting to me to it would be really neat to kind of do a similar trial at the same time versus in an actual university research and see like what the performance and the response was and how that environment, because that's always a question we have when we do something in a research barn. How is that going to translate into a 60 by 600, chicken house? So.
Yeah, and it's just like a research farm too, because we'll see big differences between like front of house and back of house.
Yep, exactly.
So got to make sure we got to have our blocking done correctly.
Yeah, I think that's unique. A lot of people, integrators often who don't have that type of setup use a paired house facility, but then you're always kind of confounded with the entire house, one versus the other, and then the replication is hard. And as you mentioned, the feed for an entire house, or a couple of houses can be kind of tough to manage too. So I think it's a pretty unique setup.
Yeah, you got to make sure for paired house trials, make sure you have at least a few different farms, because it's always seems like one's going to get messed up with feed delivery. And really, keeping everything split for feed deliveries and catching and weights at the plant and everything like that. So it can get a little cumbersome. And then we just don't have many reps also. So statistical power, I think that 𝗦𝗽𝗽𝗋𝗃𝗀𝗃 was saying you probably really needed 30 pair house farms or something like that to have some real statistical power.
Right.
That's tough.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Feed mill's not going to be super pleased with you on that one.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing, obviously, I mean, conducting research, but a lot of times we can answer, ideas just by looking at what's already been done and published out there. And I'll say, one thing with you, it's clear that you kind of try to keep up with, the literature pretty well. And I know that's tough to do because production nutritionists usually have plenty of problems to solve day to day. So keeping up. So, what's your process? I mean, are you continually looking through the literature, or are you, generally is triggered by a certain issue you're trying to find an answer to?
Usually both.
No, yeah.
I know I don't keep up with like Poultry Science or 𝗟𝗃 quite as often as I need to. So it seems like once a quarter, I'll be like, oh, hey, there's like 3 new article or 3 new, months out for Poultry Science or whatever. So I can sit there and really dig through some of those and get a lot in one, but then, it'll be maybe 3 months or 4 months again before I come back to it. So, and then sometimes there'd be really cool ones. And I'm like, hey, Sam, you didn't tell me you ran this trial.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there'd be specific questions because we were kind of talking about before we started the show. I was in there, I think Monday, just seeing if there was some equations for energy for, looking at fat chemical compositions and stuff like that.
That's good. I appreciate that, and appreciate, how you value the literature and use that as a problem solving resource. And it's a lot cheaper to find, an idea in a paper than to have to run an experiment.
Yeah, it's always a good idea to go look at the paper and see if it's already been done.
Key first step that does get overlooked sometimes, at least to at least look diligently enough to get the answer before we.
Yeah, if it's not there, I'll call you or some other people. Do you know if anybody's done this trial before?
No, that happens a lot too, because it's a little bit more in my job description to keep up with that than it is yours. So,
with science-led solutions that are sustainable, proven, and effective, BASF helps you tackle the challenges of poultry nutrition. We offer high-quality feed ingredients that enable a more sustainable production and help you achieve your animal performance targets. We call it the science of sustainable feed that succeeds.
I mean, talking about this, so, you spend a lot of time looking at research and answering questions. I mean, what would you say the top, 2, 3, top few in general kind of issues that, you're trying to make decisions around that you still don't feel like you probably have all the answers for nutritionally?
I think I saw some recently that was done, but so it seems like the swine nutritionists, it seems like they're always like every 2 or 3 years, they're coming out with, new recommendations for like lysine intake or energy or certain ratios and stuff. And it seems like maybe poultry isn't changing. We know the bird's changing, as fast as it keeps growing, and we're picking up feed conversion points with genetic improvements and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to know, some of the recommendations for lysine that you find in papers, maybe from 2008. Well, that was 17 generations ago.
Right.
So it seems, how do we keep up feeding it, those birds in terms of amino acid intakes or ratios and things like that? One other thing, I mean, there's almost hardly any vitamin research anymore. That one is kind of hey, we put it in a mineral pack and a vitamin pack, we should be good.
Right. Yep.
But it's not what I would think of in precision nutrition.
Yeah.
Trying to hit requirements or certain needs.
Yep.
Those are kind of the big ones, nutrition wise. Now there's also plenty of challenge on health side, 𝗟𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃 𝗪𝗃𝗃 kind of stuff is out there. Pneumovirus, which that's going to be, vets, not, but are there ways that, nutritional supplements or nutrients that are more supportive than others?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there's still a lot to learn, and it's going to be pretty fun. Hopefully I make it for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's and it's always hard to explain to somebody who's kind of outside, even within poultry science, outside of nutrition, who really think about these things. And you talk about a lysine trial or the need to run a lysine, and it's like, people, hey, we've been seeing this. Well, why does the world need another lysine trial? But these things continually change with the genotypes, as you mentioned, and it's really hard to keep up. Obviously modeling is a place there too that can kind of answer some of these questions without having to run in vivo trials every time. But you still have to run the work to develop the models with the new genotypes as well. So
that's right.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Chance. We appreciate your time. I know there's a lot of things. We had a hard time landing on kind of a general theme for today, and so I'm sure we can get you back for another one at some point.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thanks. Well,
hey everyone, we're always searching for the latest and greatest research to share each week. And if you have a poultry nutrition related research trial and would like to come on the show and talk about it and share it with us, feel free to email the research link, the paper where we can find it, or the abstract to hello@𝗺𝗷𝘁𝗀𝗃𝗁𝗀𝗃.com. That's hello@𝗺𝗷𝘁𝗃𝗁𝗃.com. And I look forward to hearing from you.